waifus, trade fights for better views. We both need something new. Maybe we should just tell them.
Hello, hive-minded readers, and welcome to the Books and the Bees podcast. Just like bees play a crucial role in pollinating flowers and sustaining life, books pollinate minds and nurture the soul. We see the connection between the two, the delicate dance of ideas and stories that enrich our lives.
I'm Cody.
I'm Hailey.
Welcome to our podcast.
Hello.
Hailey, what's up?
What's up? Not
Oh my
whole
gosh. I'm exhausted.
lot. Same. It's been one long week.
It's been a heck of a long week. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're here. We're killing it.
We are here. And for our listeners, it's Thursday. We're recording on a Thursday, not a Wednesday.
That's right. Yeah, it's a different day.
Yeah. It's a new day, new episode.
New life.
New life.
These are the days of our lives.
These are the days. Just like sand or whatever. I don't remember.
Yeah. I can't remember what it is either.
Something about sand.
Yeah. Yeah. But Thursday is interesting. It did throw me off though, because I think tomorrow's Thursday because I'm so used to the podcast being Wednesday.
Yep.
That it's like, oh yeah, it's actually going to be Friday tomorrow, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know about you, but like I love Fridays. I think Tuesdays are my least favorite day of the week, but like
100%.
Fridays for sure, obviously, because it's the work week and the weekend coming, which I always look forward to. So
yeah, I love Fridays too. My wife is actually flying out to Portland tomorrow for a kind of a girls' trip with a friend of her that lives there. So I'm going to have the house to myself for the weekend and plan on getting a lot of reading done.
Nice. That's exciting.
We'll see. I might end up working, actually. We'll find out.
Read,
it's probably going to be
bit.
like 50% work. Yeah, I'll try. I'll try a little bit.
Get a little bit of reading in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, it'll be fun. I love Fridays.
Absolutely. Portland's always a fun time too.
Portland is such a wild city.
It is.
Yeah. I always compare it to it's like a baby Seattle kind of. Mm-hmm. And I live in a city that's smaller than Portland. So it's like I'm going to a bigger city, but it's not like Seattle crazy, but it's definitely got a weird vibe to it. And I like it. It's kind of a cool city.
Yeah. We used to, when I was younger, we'd go to Portland quite often for like traveling for like sports stuff. And so we'd go all the time when I was a kid. And then there was like a long stint in my like teenage and like young adult years where I wasn't going or hadn't gone. And then me and one of my friends at the time went to a concert there like years, like we were like, I don't know, like 22, 23, 24 or something like that. And it was so weird like going back as an adult and remembering all the things that I had seen and like experienced as a kid and it being totally different. Like the whole like vibe had changed and I was like, this is so strange. Not in like a bad or a good way, but it's just like different. Like the mall that we went to is different than I had like remembered as a kid, and I don't know, it was very, very weird experience.
Yeah. It's a pretty fun city. We went together 2 years ago maybe and had a good time, and then she's gonna go back this weekend, so
nice.
A lot of fun.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Well, speaking of reading, should we jump into what we're reading?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Hailey, what are you reading?
I am reading the No Other God series, the first book installment of the No Other God series, The Deer and the Dragon by Piper CJ. The long await for this book is finally over.
The long await.
Yes. Unfortunately,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, is it part of the series that she did, or is it a separate?
it's a new series, completely new, separate from the Night and Its Moon series, which is complete, I believe.
Okay.
Officially.
Got it.
Also. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I unfortunately don't have it in, like, physical copy, though, because the physical copy that I had ordered, it was a special edition. For our listeners, if you want to get the first edition run of the book, I think currently has it has the teal sprayed edges. They're really pretty. Yeah, it's a very pretty color.
Love a teal spray.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you're interested in having a cool looking book, I'm just saying. But yeah, the physical copy that I had got shipped to my parents' house because, you know, we're moving back to Washington and not too long from now, and I didn't want it shipped to my house and then it get, you know, us be gone, you know, I didn't want to chance it. So I was like, I'm just going to ship it to my parents' house. And so I don't have a physical copy. And then, for our listeners, I know that I had said that I was going to the book signing where I would get another physical copy and have it signed and all that other fun stuff. Yeah, so I didn't get to go to that.
Wah wah.
Yeah, wah.
Sad.
I know. Yeah. But it's a really good book. I'm like maybe halfway done. So I downloaded it on my my iBooks. Literally the morning that it released, I downloaded it, bought it, downloaded it, and started reading it. And I was trying to burn through it before the signing, but since I didn't get to go, I didn't end up finishing it, but I'm about halfway through, I think, at least on the iBooks, because the pages get wonky, and then the page count. And yeah, it's really, really good. It's got some like supernatural, like deity type things happening. There's the main character is really cool. Yeah, and that's all I'm gonna say. Because I don't want to give spoilers, and it's a fairly new book. So if you're interested in a really cool book about like gods and goddesses, and it's got like a little bit of a mystery aspect to it, like definitely read it. Yeah,
that's hot right now. Like mythology retellings, or
yes.
you know, like mythology inspired books are super hot right now. So
yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, it's really cool. But
yay! I'm glad you got to start reading it, because I know you were super excited to go to the book signing, and it's good that it's good that you like the book too. Because I'm always nervous, and maybe this is just a weird thing that I have, but like authors that I really, really like, I'm always nervous I'm not gonna like their next book for some reason, and I don't want to. And it's happened a couple times. Like, I'm not gonna say specifically. I don't even know if I could pull one out of my ass without memory, but I'm always nervous that like, oh, what if I don't like this book and I bought it for no reason? But I haven't been disappointed recently, so I can't complain. But
yeah, and like the amount of excitement that I was experiencing for this book, yeah, if I wouldn't have liked it, it would have been a real letdown. But
yeah,
I had a feeling. I was like, this is gonna be a really good one. I can feel it.
Yay! Maybe she'll be our first author interview on the pod.
Yeah, Piper, if you're listening to this by some miracle chance.
Hailey didn't get to go.
Yeah.
So to make up for it, you get to be on our podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, hi. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah.
Please be on our podcast. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That would be cool. But yeah, so what are you reading, Cody?
So I finished the tandem read, which is Empire Storms, Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. I don't know if I have to say that after it being 3 weeks that I've been reading it, but I finished it like 2 days ago, maybe Tuesday or Monday. And it was actually better than I thought it was going to be. So I know last week, for those of you who listened, I was a little bit harsh on the tandem read, and I stand by it, but the ending of the tandem read, where the two books kind of sync together in the plot line, where you learn things in one book that make more sense for the other book, I think was really helpful and useful. And so I would say the tandem read might be worth it just for the last like quarter of it. Not that you could read them separately and then like, you know, read the last quarter of the books together. But it is definitely tough. It's probably like the hardest reading experience I've ever had outside of like reading for school or something, because it felt like a lot of work and it was hard to like keep track of what I was doing. And I felt like I couldn't get sucked into the books very well because I was always checking if I was on the right chapter. And that's always a pain in the butt. But I did enjoy the last bit of the tandem. Empire Storms was such a good book. I loved it. Tower of Dawn, I didn't love. It was not my favorite book. And one day we'll talk about it more specifically when we can be spoiler free, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But I am starting the last book in Throne of Glass, which is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. And I'm only like 10% in it. I really can't say much about it. But it's so far been very good, and I can definitely tell it's building up for a crazy finale. So I'm just kind of here for the ride at this point. And I think it's going to be crazy. It's a huge book on my Kobo. It's like 2,000 pages, which is like insane. I think that's usually like 1,000 pages. Like usually my Kobo doubles the amount of pages for regular books. It's like 1,000 pages long. I'm like, dang. So it's going to be a while on this one for sure.
That's so exciting. If you had to like rate the tandem read, not the books themselves, but like the tandem read and the experience of the tandem read, what would you give it out of 10?
Maybe like a 7.
Okay.
Which is more generous than I thought I would give it.
Okay.
If you asked me last week, I probably would have said like a 5. If you asked me on the first day that I started it, I would have been like a 9. But I feel like I'm at a 7 now. I think it does make it easier to go through Tower of Dawn, which for those who don't know, it's like the book's slower. It doesn't match like Empire of Storms very much is like the continuation of the series, and Tower of Dawn is chronologically the same time as Empire of Storm, but different characters, and it's got a different kind of setup to it. So I think it is easier to digest Tower of Dawn that way, but it can be tough. So yeah, I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay. That's pretty good. That's more than I thought it was going to be, because, yeah, man. I know it's the way that it looks when you look at, like, the little spreadsheet type of deal where you look at, like, what you're supposed to read and that sort of thing. Looked, what's the word I'm looking for? Not overwhelming, but it looked like quite the process, so...
Yeah.
A little bit intimidating, so. It
was intimidating, yeah. And I think, I don't remember if I mentioned it last week, but I read on my Kobo for both books, and I thought it was going to be easier because it was just an e-reader, and I didn't have 2 physical books, because they're also pretty big, beefy books separately. And I think it'd be better to read them physical, because then you could just tab the books and, okay, I just have to read to the next tab, and then I'll switch to the other book and read to the next tab and then switch to the other book. So you don't have to look at a sheet every time, which is what I was doing. And I think that took me out. So if I ever read the series again, which I don't know if I will, because it's such a big series,
it's huge.
I think, it'd be tough. I think I'd probably buy the 2 books physically and read them that way.
Yeah, that honestly, it probably makes sense. And whoever, like, I mean, obviously the author, she's probably the one that was like, yeah, read these together, like tandem read. But I can only imagine the person who put the like list together of like, okay, if you're reading here in this book, you have to be caught up to this and this other in the other book.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of work because they synced it up very well.
Wow.
Like there were no spoilers. Tower of Dawn came out after Empire of Storms, and so like they had to make sure that you wouldn't go too far in Tower of Dawn because there are spoilers for Empire of Storm and Tower of Dawn, and they were very well synced up. Really, really good, I would say.
That's so like crazy too to think about. The like the people who, when all of this, and I don't know when this series was published, I'm assuming it was quite a few years ago, but like, or these books, maybe not like the last couple, but I can't imagine like reading the Tower of Dawn and then having to wait for like the Empire of Storms.
No way. Yeah.
And then you're just like, you know, and then all these other people who like didn't have to wait are like, yeah, no, tandem read. And they're like, yeah, I wish I would, because I like, I mean, as I've kind of said, I struggled with the Tower of Dawn book, and like, not that it wasn't a good book or that I didn't, you know, it wasn't enjoyable or anything. There was a few parts that I was like, but the like pacing was just, whew.
Yeah, the pacing is so different than the rest of the series.
Yeah, for sure. But that's, man, I'm really excited for you to finish the whole series so that we can talk about all of the things and all of the characters and all of the stuff.
Yes.
Because I think like I think I said in the last episode, this series is probably one of my favorite series.
It's definitely like a top 5, I would say, for sure. Yeah. In fact, my sister asked me if I thought it was better than ACOTAR, and I think so far, you know, who knows what Kingdom of Ash will do, but so far I think it is better than ACOTAR.
For me, I liked it a lot better than ACOTAR.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I just overall, obviously no spoilers, but the characters, the character development, the overall storytelling and world building for me, like, it just really hit. Compared to ACOTAR, not that ACOTAR wasn't good and that I didn't like it, because I did. I love that series. That was the first series that I read of all of hers, but that was, I don't know. They're in a glass, and I was gonna ask you, did you cry at all during either of the books?
No.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if I got sometimes I get teary-eyed, but I don't cry. Okay. And I don't remember getting teary-eyed. I was very upset at the end of Empire Storms. I'll say that. I was very upset at the ending of Empire Storms.
Yeah, because I don't remember if it was the Empire Storms or the Kingdom of Ash. One of those books, I bawled like a baby, because it was just like, I was like, oh my gosh. And I really related to the main character, so that also kind of, you know.
Yeah, she's definitely relatable for sure.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Which is different than ACOTAR. I think that's part of it too. Like, ACOTAR, the main character, is, in my opinion, not very relatable.
Full disclosure to our listeners, I did not like Feyre. At all. And not that I didn't like the books. Like I said, I really liked those books, but I just, the whole time I was like, gosh, I really do not like this character.
Yeah.
Definitely,
she's definitely not my favorite.
Yeah, I related way more to like Nesta. But anyways, that's really cool, and I'm very excited for you to finish the series.
Me too. Yeah, in fact, you're probably going to hear about it for the next couple of episodes, because we're going to be recording some like back-to-back episodes. But I'm very excited to get through it. I'm taking it a little bit slower because I think I am getting a little bit. This is my typical thing where if I read too many books in a series, I can kind of get like lost in it and don't really know. I don't know. I don't want to say bored, but it becomes too routine for me, and I feel like I need to switch. And once I finished the tandem read, I was like, okay, now I really want to jump into Kingdom of Ash, and I didn't do a book in between like I thought I was going to. And I can tell that it's slowing down my reading just a little bit. But I think once like the meat of Kingdom of Ash picks in, then I'll start really diving through it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I could see that.
I'm also busy with a lot of other stuff from like school and work, so it's also been part of it. But. Yeah,
I feel like this series would have been really nice to read, like, I don't know, like peak like undergrad, where you like 100%. Don't have anything to do. Like, not that like obviously some stuff is important in undergrad, but you know what I mean. Like one of those maybe during the summer when you're not like nothing's too serious, like sophomore year when you like don't really know your major, you don't have anything too crazy pressing to do.
It definitely would have been better to read it about that time, but yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it.
Right.
Cool. Well, we have a little bit of beekeeping. Hailey, you already mentioned your beekeeping with the book signing, which is very sad. But hopefully one day in the future Piper CJ will be on the podcast, and that'll be a beekeeping, so
that would be wild. I'm putting that into the universe because that'd be cool.
Yeah, I would enjoy it. I think I would enjoy it. I know the first book in that series, The Night in Its Moon, I think is the first book. Is that right?
Yes.
It's on my TBR, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, definitely excited to read it. But we have another just small beaking item, which we mentioned last week. Speaking of Throne of Glass, which we talk about a lot on this podcast, we are going to do a co-read of The Assassin's Blade, which is the prequel to the first Throne of Glass book. And it's a collection of novellas. There's 4 novellas. And we're going to do that co-read for June. And so now's the time to start getting those books and getting ready. And you can start reading if you want to. I'm going to wait until we get closer to June. But it's supposed to be really good. And after that, both of us will have read every single book in the Throne of Glass universe, and we'll be ready to talk about it to our heart's delight.
Yes.
Spoiler free.
I can't wait.
I can't either. Yay. So yeah, get your copy of The Assassin's Blade. You can find the novellas separately. My library actually has them separately, and you can just check them out anytime because there's no holds on them, but there is a hold on like the main book that has all of them together. So if you're having a hard time finding the whole book, maybe just try reading the novellas individually.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I didn't know that they had all 4 of them together in one. That's cool. That's good to know.
Yep. I don't know which order they're in. We should probably put that in for next week, but
yeah,
because I think we'll probably read in the order of the book. I would say would make the most sense, but yeah, we'll give those details for sure.
Yeah, and I'll figure out. I really hope that it's not one of those where they're like, read this one before this one, even though it's like chronologically the time of some of these. The way that books are nowadays, it seems like the authors are always like, with novellas, they like put them in like weird, not weird, but you know what I mean. Like they put them in like chronological in the storyline. Order, so I feel like I really hope it's nothing like too crazy where you're like, oh no, you have to read this book before, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hope so too, actually. Like you're saying the novellas might be in different I don't want that. I really hope that's true. Yeah, I really hope that's not true.
But
I agree. Yeah.
Like,
because we already fucked up apparently, because we were supposed to read Assassin's Blade like either first or third apparently. Yeah. And we didn't do it. So
right. Yeah. And I'm like, dang, like I wish I would have known, but also I probably wasn't gonna read like, you know, Assassin's Blade before I was I didn't even realize that those were things that you could read before certain other books in the series, whatever.
Yep, this is all before book talk, you know. Before book talk told us how to do everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. Don't tell me how to read my books.
yeah, don't tell me what to do. Yeah. Well, so we have a really fun episode topic this week. It's going to be us discussing, digesting, living inside of our TBRs and sharing our TBR experience. And I think it's going to be really wild because we have so different TBRs, and the way we read is so different that I think it's going to be very interesting to talk about. Yes. So yeah,
it's almost like a look inside our minds, I feel like.
It is. Yeah, I think it is. I think it really is. I think it totally fits. So Hailey, what's your TBR look like right now?
Yeah, so, and for our listeners, I use Goodreads to track my TBR for the most part. I do use iBooks as well if I'm, but usually I'll transfer between the two. Anyways, I'll get into that in a second. So, my TBR is currently only...
Oh, should we define TBR? Have we defined it yet this episode?
Do you want to define it, or should I define it?
Sure, yeah. So TBR stands for to be read, and it's usually like thought of as a pile of books. It could be a physical book. It could be a collection of titles that you have on like Goodreads, or, you know, like Haley's going to talk about where TBR is. It's basically just either a list or a physical pile of books that you want to get to at some point. And it could be a TBR you want to get to within the next month, or a TBR that you have for your whole life that you just carry with you. So that's what most people talk about when we talk about a TBR. Sometimes it's called, in Goodreads, it's actually called Want to Read, but everybody just calls it a TBR there too. So yeah, that's what I know of.
Yeah, I wonder if that makes me wonder if TBR is like a copywritten word or something.
Oh, maybe. I hope not.
I hope not either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's well used within the whole, like,
It is
maybe
well
they just
used.
wanted to be different so that they could be like, no, it's your want to read, which, whatever.
Yeah.
WTR is not the same.
Yeah, WTR is not a good acronym for sure.
It doesn't ring the same way.
Yeah, it doesn't ring the same way. Yeah.
But yeah, so my current TBR on Goodreads is 56. I don't know how accurate necessarily that is right now because my life has been in chaos mode the last few weeks, and I know that I have put 1, 2, 3, so like 5 books, physical copies are sitting on my shelf right now, waiting also to be read, and I don't think I've put them in my TBR. So for our listeners, let's take a look inside my head. The way that I keep track of my TBR is typically just like if I see a book like at Barnes & Noble and I'm out shopping at Barnes & Noble, I will just like pick it up. If
Sure.
I have like the means to do so. Or if I'm out and about like grocery shopping or whatever. I will add a book and then I will like essentially add that book to my TBR on Goodreads because that's what I use mainly. Occasionally, if I am on iBooks and I see a book in the recommended, or if I'm reading a series and there's like another book in the series, like I'm reading the first one and then it recommends the second one, then most of the time I won't add the second one to my TBR. I'll just, especially so on Goodreads, you can basically hit like want to read, currently reading, or read on the little drop down thing, and it'll sort depending on those, I think. And so typically with those, if in that instance it doesn't even make it onto my TBR. It just goes straight into my currently reading and then read. And sometimes it doesn't even make it to currently reading because I'm really bad about keeping track of that as well. Because you have to like physically push a button and like go in, find the book, that sort of thing. It becomes a little cumbersome.
Yeah, it does. That's true.
Yeah, and as I think we've already kind of established, I'm a pretty much like romance only type reader. I sprinkle in some fantasy, romance, paranormal romance, but typically the underlying theme of the books that I read is romance. So that's what you would find on my TBR. So yeah, I don't know, so I said I had 57 books on my TBR. I definitely will not be disclosing all of them, but
yeah.
I'll just do my top 5 that are currently, or the first 5 that are currently sitting on my TBR.
Okay, that's good.
So my latest one that I've added to my TBR was May 1st, and it's Born of Flame and Fury by Hannah Danielle, and it's book 1 in a series. The second book is The Witch is Back, Toil and Trouble, number 1 by Sophie H. Morgan. And then the second book in that, actually, hold on one second, I need to confirm something real quick before I say that. Okay, so I can't say this, well, yeah, I'm not going to say the second one that's on, because it's the second book in the series that kind of already gives it away, but because it's on my NetGalley, and I have the arc for the second book, so spoilers.
Hell yeah.
And you'll get my full review once I've read it, but it doesn't come out until a few months from now. So The Witch is Back by Sophie H. Morgan, and then Swift and Saddled, which is the second book by Lila Sage. So I read Done and Dusted, and then Swift and Saddled is the second book in the series, and there's going to be 3 in the series, and I'm very excited to start reading this. Womb City, which we've discussed on the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Great book.
Yeah, which I'm really excited to start reading it, but, priorities. By, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Tolotlo, Tomase?
I think it's Tololo
Tol-
Tasami.
Okay. Okay, Tololo
Something
Tasami.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
My apologies to the author for not pronouncing that right. If I'm not pronouncing that correctly, feel free to correct me at any point to our listeners if I'm pronouncing things incorrectly. So, the next one is Neighbors Like That in A Love Like This series by Karina Taylor. Yeah, and those are my top 5 on my TBR. Yeah. And then, I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about our shelves.
Definitely.
Okay, so...
Because I got a lot of shelves.
Okay, so my shelves on Goodreads are basically, so I have 7 of them. And obviously you have pretty much your given, your reading currently, you're currently reading, your read, and your want to read. But then you can go in and make different shelves. And I do have a NetGalley ARC advanced reader copy shelf. I think I saw somewhere that they're like, do that so that way they can like see if you like attach your Goodreads to your NetGalley, but I don't have mine attached to my NetGalley. Or yeah.
That's smart. I should do that.
Yeah.
That's smart.
So I I have a DNF shelf. I have a favorites shelf, which I don't have anything in my favorites because it's hard for me to pick. I don't know if about our listeners, but like, you know, it's so hard for me to be like, yes, this is my absolute favorite, because I love most every book that I read in like certain ways that it's hard for me to like put them in this box of like, no, these ones are my favorites and these ones are not my favorite.
Yeah.
It's like, it seems silly. But yeah, and then I have another shelf that I actually added recently called the On Pause shelf, so basically for me, the On Pause shelf is simply the books that I've started that I won't be DNFing, but I'm not in the mood to read them, or I like started reading other books because they were like coming out, or I had arcs to read that kind of took priority. And the majority of the On Pause books that are on my shelf, and there's one book on that shelf where it shouldn't be on there, but I moved it there and then I took it off and it got stuck there, so I don't know what the hell's going on. But
yeah, that does happen sometimes. Yeah.
The majority of the books on my On Pause shelf are more like fantasy leaning, or maybe even like paranormal leaning. So I don't know, like I got in a mood where I was just reading like more rom-com and like sports romance type books for a while. I think they're considered contemporary romances. And yeah, I just stopped reading the fantasy type stuff for a hot minute, but I'm sure I'll get back to them. Because I don't like starting books and then not finishing them. It feels weird. But yeah, and I purchased these books, so like I will be reading them.
Yeah.
So yeah. Those are my TBRs. That's my look into my brain. I'm very like simple. I don't like to put a bunch of different categories because then I feel like it gets overwhelming. I don't have a bunch of books because then the number being a 57 for me currently is like so overwhelming. So it feels like this looming, never-ending cloud of books that are screaming to be read, and it makes me feel bad that I haven't read them yet.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
So.
Oh boy.
But yeah, I'm like, man, I really want to read these, and you like, listen, there's not enough time in the day, okay?
No, there's not.
To read
there's
all the books. But yeah, and I guess I'll share my currently reading shelf has 7 books on it. So if anyone wants to look into the chaos that is, because that's
Wow.
I put a bunch of books that I was reading on like a semi hiatus while I finished the No Other Gods book because I was just so excited for it. So
yeah.
Yep, that's me.
Wow.
Those are my books. That's my TBR.
Oh boy. Well, I actually like the way you do your TBR.
Oh, really?
Because I feel like it's useful.
Yeah.
Like, my way is a little chaotic, and we're going to talk about it here in a second, but you're getting a lot of use out of your TBR, which I think is the point of it, and that's really good.
Yeah. I'm very excited. Let's talk about your TBR, Cody. I want to dive in. Let's go.
Okay. So my TBR is the exact opposite of Hailey's in almost every sense. The way I track my books is I've had Goodreads for quite a while. Actually, if I go back, there's a way to sort by oldest book. Well, at least for my TBR, the oldest book I have on my TBR is from, so it's from 2021. And I did a purge of my TBR in 2021. I think that's why these are the oldest ones. Because I don't remember how big it was before, but I think it was bigger than it is now. And I was like, you know what? I don't know any of these books that are on this. I'm just going to delete it all and start fresh. And it was very weird but fulfilling. And then I continued adding books to my TBR. And now I'm up to 477 books. It was a little bit higher before we started recording, but right before we started, I went through my TBR and marked all the books that were on my TBR that I read as read.
That helps.
And so it dropped to like 470.
That helps.
Yeah. But that's a lot of books. Over 400 books. And I think when we started the podcast, I was at like 440. And so, I think it's gone up pretty significantly. And I would not say the podcast has, well, no, it probably has. I would say the podcast has like made my TBR bigger for sure. But I think I've been adding books to it for quite a while, and not too surprised that it's this way.
Yeah, I feel like mine's really grown too because of like Bookstagram and Book Talk as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like Bookstagram and Book Talk have increased my TBRs. And I was just thinking too, as I was going through this, like I never put Throne of Glass on my TBR, and I never put Akatar on my TBR. Those were completely outside of my TBR, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, so I've got 477 books. And so I have been just miscellaneously scrolling through them to see what's on them. And the categories are pretty varied because I'm definitely I read quite a bit of different genres, as you probably guessed based off of what I've been reading on the podcast. I have, how many shelves do I have? I don't even know. It doesn't tell me.
Wait, I think I can see how many shelves you have.
I have a long list of shelves. Let's put it that way.
Can I tell them how many bookshelves you have?
You can tell
it's
them.
51. Yeah. He has 51 bookshelves. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. So one of the things that I did when I started my TBR fresh back in 2021 was my goal was to make all the books on my TBR searchable by category. And so I went on and tagged them onto shelves based off of the category that they're in. So like sci-fi, fantasy, dystopian, feminist, funny novels, gamer novels, hilarious novels. Like those are the categories that I have for these books. And the idea was that if I'm in the mood for a sci-fi, I just go click on the sci-fi tab, sci-fi shelf. I got 86 books on that shelf, and now I can scroll through and find a sci-fi book if I want to read it. Have I ever done this? No, I've literally never once used this function, and it took me hours. I think I spent like 4 days doing this, like after work.
This sounds pretty time-consuming.
I'm
giggling at.
I wish I could use it.
I'm giggling at some of the names of your your shelves. It's really funny.
Oh yeah, yeah. I got some wild ones. Yeah, so my TBR really doesn't benefit me a lot. But I don't consider it the list of books that I have to read in my life. I think that's what's different between your TBR and my TBR is from like this. I wouldn't actually call this a TBR. I would call this is a list of books that I want to not forget about and maybe think about reading at some point. Like there are books as I'm scrolling through this that I do not remember putting on here and I'm probably not going to read. And at some point, I'll probably just take them off and be like, yeah, you know what? This book doesn't sound interesting to me. I'm just not going to read it.
Yeah. Well, and that makes sense. Because, like, I feel like it's it almost sounds like a more like a catalog of books instead of
Yeah.
like a list of like these are the books that I'm going to read. But I mean, I feel like I've seen on like Bookstagram people post their TBRs, and some of them have a lot of books also in their TBRs. So I'd be curious to know what like how other people categorize their TBRs, like, you know, or how they think of their TBRs, if they think of more of a catalog of books that will eventually be read at some point, or that they've like seen them and like, oh, that's so interesting, I might want to read that someday. Or if they're more on like my train of thought where they're like, I'm going to read that book like come hell or high water. Like,
Yeah.
it will be read. Maybe not now, but eventually. So yeah, I'd be interested to know if the people who tend to have more books on their TBR list, quotes, have that train of thought of like, no, this is more my like book catalog than it is my like true, I'm going to read all of these books. Or if they have that mindset where they're like, no, I'm going to read every single freaking one of this book, even if their TBR is 1,000 or 2,000 books long, which is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen some pretty big TBRs out there. I've decided I'm going to die with my TBR unfinished, and I'm okay with it because there are so many good books that come out every week. I'm never going to be able to read all the good books out there. Mm-hmm. It's just the way the world is.
Yeah.
So whenever I see a book, if I'm on, like, I'll go on to Goodreads and look at their, like, you know, books that come out in the summer list, and I'll just put a bunch of them on my TBR that look interesting to me.
Okay.
And that's usually where my TBR jumps up. Or if I go to Barnes & Noble, I don't buy books very often, but I'll stick them on my Goodreads and, you know, just keep it on my radar to that if I can't quite remember the book I was looking at, then I can check it out.
Okay.
But I'm such a strong mood reader that it's really hard for me to, like, I like for people who choose a TBR for the month I think it's a superpower that I do not have, because there's no way I could pick books to read in a certain order and do it without getting irritated at, like, the books. Because I want to read, like, the book I want to read if it's fantasy, like, I have to read a fantasy. I can't wait and read something else in the meantime. It's got to be a fantasy book. And so that's usually what dictates what my next book is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense, though. I mean, and I think, like, that might be a good way to, like, also prevent, like, a book slump or, like, book burnout.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it does help.
Yeah. Awesome. What are your top 5 or top 10 books on your TBR?
Let's see. Okay, so I'll do the top 5, I think, because these actually seem good books. It's because I honestly don't know where some of these came from. The first one's called My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oyinikan Braithwaite. I'm so sorry. I know I'm not saying that right. And it is a very interesting mystery book, it looks like, that I just put on my TBR 2 days ago. Very excited about it. The second book is Africa is Not a Country, Notes on a Bright Continent, and it's a nonfiction book about all the different countries in Africa. I saw that at a bookstore in DC, and I've been waiting to read that. So that one is actually going to get read fairly soon by me. I think I put it on hold at the library, so that is going to be read.
Nice.
Book 3 is called The Prison Healer by Lynette Nani.
Okay.
And that is the first book in I think it's a new series. And it's a little bit of a romantasy bend to it. And so I'm kind of excited about that. It says, from the best-selling author Lynette Noni becomes a dark, thrilling YA fantasy, perfect for fans of Sarah J. Maas and Saba Tahir. And so it definitely sounds up my alley. The fourth book is called One Dark Window, which is another first book in a series by Rachel Gillig. And this one I think is also a romantasy, kind of a gothic romantasy book that I'm excited about.
That sounds really familiar. I think I've seen that book before on, like, Bookstagram.
It was very popular on Bookstagram.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a very The cover, I think you'd recognize right away.
Okay.
And then the last book in my top 5 is called House of Ass and Shadow by Leah Stone. Ash. Did I say ass?
I heard ass. I don't know.
House of Ash and Shadow. But it's also a romantasy. This is like a YA fae fantasy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. I think there was a list of romantasy books that came out recently, and that's on my list. So,
yeah. Well, and you mentioned that, and that's something that I don't do. I don't look at, like, unless we're going to talk about something, like, for the podcast and it's a list of books, I don't go and look at lists of books that often. I just kind of...
Really?
Yeah, I just kind of, like, if the cover looks... that's something that we should talk about, too. What, like, causes you to put a book on your TBR?
oh my gosh. The cover is probably for me.
Same.
Like if I'm reading a list on Goodreads, and Goodreads has like, they'll usually do like a list of like 50 books. It's like 50 books that come out this summer that you're going to love, and they'll sort them by category kind of. I do not read the descriptions. I just go off the cover.
Okay.
And like, or if it's an author that I've heard of or an author that I know, then yeah, I'll just plug it in on a TBR. But like 9 times out of 10, it's the title.
Okay.
Yeah. Or the cover, I should say, the cover. Yeah.
That's very similar to how I put things on my TBR. Is it, unless, or if someone, like one of my friends, like really suggests a book and they're like, no, you need to read this. Then it'll go on my TBR as well. But for the most part, my TBR is comprised of books that I was like, this is a cool cover. I'm going to put it on there. That looks interesting.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, same here.
Sometimes I don't even read the description. I'm just like, yeah, it looks cool. But yeah. And honestly, like, I think Bookstagram and Book Talk have had quite a significant impact on my TBR as far as, you know, what I want to read or what I think is like, oh, that looks good or it sounds good or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm also really bad about, like, remembering those books, too. And being like, oh, I need to... this one book talk or this one, you know, Bookstagram post forever ago that I liked and didn't save. Like, I don't remember what the book was called, but it sounded interesting. So it'll never make it to my TBR.
That's why, like, the second that I have any interest in a book, I put it on my TBR because I'm like, oh no, I'm going to forget this book exists. And that's how, like, my whole brain works all the time. Like, in my email inbox, I have every email that I've had for my whole college career saved in my inbox because I'm paranoid that I might need it. So I have like 50,000 emails in my inbox.
Shit.
They're all read, but I have 50,000 emails in my inbox because I'm like, I might need it someday. And so I am a hoarder when it comes to electronic storage, and my TBR is indicative of that for sure.
Yeah. Could you... Okay, another question. Do you think that your TBR would be as big if we did not have the digital catalogs that we have access to today?
No, it would not.
Okay.
Because like the great thing about Goodreads is that you can actually scan a book on Goodreads.
Oh, really?
And it'll just import it into your TBR. Like it'll recognize the cover and you can do that, which I do all the time. If I had to go through the extra step to write down, like on a paper list or something, I think it would be much smaller. And I probably would have lost it multiple times and
and my,
probably would not have used it.
My bank account would literally be like, please stop. Or begging, stop. You don't need to buy that many books, please.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even mention, I guess, I do have a bookshelf that has books that I haven't read that may or may not be on my Goodreads TBR.
Oh, okay.
And I don't even know how many are over here that I haven't read. Probably like maybe a third of the shelf or of the bookshelf. Yeah.
So when you're like in the mood to read something, you typically go to like your TBR on Goodreads. Is that?
No. When I am in the mood to read a book, once I finished a book,
Mm-hmm.
I usually spend like some time deciding what it's going to be. And I'll be honest, it's usually a book that I've heard about from something else that I pick up before it's on my TBR.
Okay.
And this is another feature that I have that I don't think is very good to have, but it's one that I do, is I really love reading current books that people are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so like 2024 releases right now are like things that I'm itching to get back to because I've been reading Throne of Glass, which is a great series. I've loved it. It's definitely really very buzzy. People talk about it all the time, but like I love reading new releases. I love seeing what people say about new releases. I love, like, at the end of every year, I pick out my top 10 books that were released in that year.
Okay.
And that's what I love to do. And so I really don't read backlog books very often.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wish I did because there's so many good books that I never got around to.
Yeah.
And want to go back and read.
Yeah, I think I also kind of do that to a certain degree as well, because it's like, I feel like it's like easy to get caught up in the hype, right? Where you're like, oh,
yeah, it is.
This looks like such a good book and everyone's talking about it, and like you kind of want to be part of the conversation a little bit. You know, when these new releases happen. I'm trying to think of a book that I've read recently that was a new release that I was like, I have to read this book. But I don't remember. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Because I don't remember.
Yeah, there's a couple, like, Funny Story by Emily Henry is one that we've talked about on the pod before that I definitely want to read. There was one, I was at Barnes & Noble the other day, and I almost bought this book called Real Americans by Rachel Kong. And I couldn't describe to you what the book's about. I honestly have no idea. But the cover is beautiful, and it has the edges have a design on the edge of it that are so pretty that I almost bought the book. Yeah. But it was extremely heavy. It wasn't a very big book, but it was extremely heavy, and it was $35.
Oh wow, yeah, that's.
And I said, "Yeah, sorry, I'm going to take a rain check on this."
yeah, that's quite the. It's an expensive. No offense to the author or anything, obviously, but like that's an expensive book. That's for as far as books go, you know, and I know that books especially have gotten quite pricey in the last
like
year.
A new hardcover is like $30 now.
Yeah. Did I tell you about that like 40? I'm not going to disclose what book it was, but it was like a $45 or $40 audiobook.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, you did tell me that. Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
When I look at it, because I was like, oh, I'll just like listen to this, like, you know, while I'm like cleaning the house or whatever, and like packing and whatnot, because what better way than to listen to books like while you're doing mindless things. But and I was like, oh, I'll just go read this book on audio because I have it on iBooks, and I was like, never mind. Not doing that.
It's tough. It's really tough. And like I don't blame the authors. They definitely don't decide what the price of their books are. It's the publishers. And I do blame the publishers. And if you're listening, publishers, you need to make your books cheaper because the everyday American, the everyday reader cannot spend $35 on a book. Yeah. Consistently.
And we want to support authors. Like, it's not that, we like, do. You know, we're like, oh no, I can't, you know, I don't screw that author because their book's expensive. It's like, dang, I really wish I could buy that book, but that's a lot. you know, for something that you're gonna read maybe twice. I mean, I'm sure people, you know, the special editions, that sort of thing is a different story, but you know, you're literally gonna read it. For me especially, I'm gonna read it once and then put it away and then never like open it back up again. I'll think about it a lot, but I won't ever open it again.
I will reread books, but not very often, and it has to be kind of specific, and I have to be in the mood for it. I have to be in a special mood to reread a book. So, it's tough out here in the streets. It is if we're book readers.
Yeah, it is. So many books, so little time. My last question, I guess, is on your TBR. If you were to take a glance at it, what book would you want to read? Like next, like within the next like week or two? Is there a book on it that you're like, I want to read that?
Okay. Well, yes. I actually have been looking at this book on my TBR called Home is Where the Bodies Are. And this is one of my like tropes that I really like is horror books about horror movies. And this book cover is a VHS tape. Like the whole cover is a VHS tape, and it's about somebody who's, I believe they're making a movie like in the 90s, which is another thing I love. I love 90s nostalgia in a story. And so I would definitely read this book. And it just came out actually too. So
Okay.
it's definitely going to be one I probably get to this year. But yeah, for sure.
It sounds good. Sounds really good.
Yeah, I do really, really want to read it. Do you have a book that you're very excited about on your TBR?
Yeah. And unfortunately I have to read like 3 other books. 3? Yeah, I think it's only 3. 3 other books because it's in a series. It's the last book in the series, and it's a book, a series that I really loved and enjoyed. At least the first few books that I read. But it's called Only and Forever. It's the 7th book in the Bergman Brothers series by Chloe Leese. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. But yeah, it's I need to unfortunately read a few more books before it in the series because I read the first few books. I don't remember if I've read the first 3 or the first 4 books in the series last year, or like the end of last year, and then I read one earlier this year. And yeah, I saw that she was releasing the 7th book. I think it just came out like maybe a month ago now. It's been
Okay.
But I was like, man, and everyone was hyping it up, and I wanted to be a part of the hype. But there was other books that I was reading, and I was like, dang it, I just couldn't get to it. So yeah. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I do love the hype. I do love reading with the hype for sure.
Absolutely. And second honorable mention to Womb City. I really want to read that book. It sounds so interesting, but every time I like think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to read that book, and then I forget, and then I start reading other stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, that's a good book for sure. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's amazing how different our TBRs are, but you know, it works. I think our systems work for us.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
Like I live a chaotic life, and that's just how I've decided my TBR is going to be. And I've accepted the fact that I'm never going to read all the books on my TBR. And I have no like attachment to my TBR. Like I could go through, if I spent 10 minutes, I could probably cut off probably like 10 or 20 books off of this and not feel bad about it.
I could not. I would feel so bad. I would be like, oh man, all those books that I wanted to read. If I lost my Goodreads tomorrow, I would be like, I'd probably cry.
I would be upset if I lost my whole Goodreads, because then I would probably never remember any books that I ever wanted to read that I didn't read immediately. Yeah. But yeah, there's certainly just on the couple pages of because my total TBR is 23 pages on Goodreads. So within the first like 2 or 3 pages, I've definitely seen a couple books that are like, do I really need this on here anymore? Might cut this off, but I just never do. So are you going to finish your TBR this year? I know you said that was your goal.
I'm going to try. I need to go on a stop buying books spree, which hopefully that happens soon. And yeah, I'm going to make it a point to start grabbing from my TBR. There's a few books on my TBR still that have not been released yet anyways, so...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, the other books that are just sitting there chilling, I could probably stand to go in and read, because I feel like 57's a doable, and my whole reading list, I think I'm 20-something out of 101 books currently. So I'm cruising along. I have 26 out of 101 books.
57 is for sure doable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's what our TBRs look like, and we want to hear what your TBRs look like.
Yeah.
Are you a Hailey or are you a Cody?
Yeah, tell us.
That's what we want to know.
Yes. Do you live for the chaos, or are you emotionally attached to your TBR?
Yes. Please let us know. We would love to have you email us or Instagram us. Our email is booksandbeespod@gmail.com. Our Instagram is @booksandthebeespod. And yeah, we'd love to hear how you manage your TBRs. Do you use Goodreads? Do you use a physical list? I know some people that do a physical list for their TBR, and I'm very impressed because that's the level of commitment I don't have, but we'd love to see it. Yeah, love to hear it. And we want to thank you, the listeners, for listening to our podcast. We love it when you listen. We want to thank the American Indie for the use of their song Rendezvous, which is our song intro and outro, which we both love very much. It's a great song. And go check them out on Spotify. Yeah. And give us a review on your podcast app if you haven't already.
Please.
It does help us.
It does.
Yes, please.
And comment on our Instagram if you follow us and maybe you don't say anything. Feel free. I don't bite. I'll respond. With hearts,
we're very nice.
Friendliness, so.
Yeah. Chat with us. We want to chat with you, so chat with us. For sure. Yeah. Great. Hailey, is there anything else you want to mention?
Nope. Just enjoy to our listeners. Enjoy your TBRs. Do what you got to do. Do you.
Yeah. Whatever works for you is what matters the most. We're here to have fun, not to suffer.
Yes.
So don't let your TBR make you suffer.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks again for listening. We hope you enjoyed this literary journey as much as we did. If you're buzzing with excitement, don't forget to subscribe, email us, and leave a high five-worthy review on your podcast listening app. Until next time, happy reading, and may your shelves be filled with tales as enchanting as a blooming garden. Keep the buzz alive, and we'll catch you in the next chapter. Bye for now.